In the emotion-parched arena of prostitution, Jim Bunch was a fool for love. He signed letters to hookers, love, Jim, and fell hard for the women who sold him their affection by the hour. Jim Bunch had no more business running an escort service than igniting a state government scandal. But he did both, for love and money, and paid with his life. Jim Bunch was a humbled gray figure in a year-shaded garagely by Tonya Harding, the Bobbitts, and O.J. Simpson. When it came time to tell his story, he shrank from the camera lights. Bunch's brother says flatly, the media exposure is what killed Jim. But Bunch's hidden life was wobbling recklessly long before its exposure and violent culmination. The underworld of prostitution tempted Bunch, his girls, and his clients with just enough hedonistic adventure to ensnare them all. Bunch was right in the center of the action. In 1991, Jim worked for the state, Natalie worked for Ames Escorts. Jim evaluated regional Medicaid facilities. Natalie turned tricks. Jim loved Natalie. Perhaps the feeling was mutual. Jim Bunch was 43 and new to Austin, having just transferred from the Department of Human Services office in San Antonio. His family would later attribute Bunch's troubles to his new environment. Bunch was an intelligent and good-humored man, but he had always been shy around women. A boyhood bout with polio had left him with a slight limp. By his senior year in high school, his hair was thinning rapidly. Bunch was entirely acceptable looking, but remained bedeviled by his shortcomings. Insecure, lonely, and unlucky in love, Bunch sought out another side of life in Austin, the side that forfeits romance for the sake of control. He dialed the phone numbers of escort services. Bunch was a generous man, and the prostitutes he hired were often desperately poor. His state salary was a little more than $30,000, but he had credit cards and used them liberally. Above all, he could not say no to Natalie Dudney. Natalie was redheaded, buxom, and about 35, a veteran by call-girl standards. She had been plying her trade in Austin for nearly 2 decades. At his request, she moved in with him in July 1991. Time and again Natalie would disappear, returning weeks or months later, broke and wasted. Bunch always took her back. Natalie's employer was Sherry Beard, the 25-year-old owner of Ames Escorts. Sherry had been arrested for prostitution in 1985 at 19, but otherwise ran a discreet operation. While dating Natalie and sometimes paying for the services of her co-workers, Bunch developed a phone acquaintanceship with Ames' owner that evolved over time. For a while, Jim Bunch kept his two lives separate. At the DHS he was a dignified presence in his starched white shirts and his well-trimmed beard. He spent holidays with his parents in Mexia, all holidays except New Year's Eve, when he would drive to the north side of Austin to a place near the old Dr. Pepper plant. Bunch only watched the action, but that was adventure enough. He took Natalie to the Swingers Club and celebrated the dawn of 1993. Less than 2 months later, on the evening of February 20th, Bunch was driving Natalie and her 3-year-old son back to his house when she begged him to make a stop for heroin. As soon as they pulled into his driveway, Natalie darted into the house and shot up in the bathroom. Bunch found her dead 5 minutes later. Jim fought with everyone he loved, says Kelly LaRue. Him and me, we had a completely love-hate relationship. He was a father figure to me, but we argued every day, all day long. Like many fathers, Jim Bunch enjoyed reminding his daughter, who controlled the purse strings. Kelly had wanted to buy a house, but she had bad credit. Kelly LaRue spends her days and nights here in a casual state of numbness, smoking pot, watching television, listening to the stereo. Her husband is on the lam. By 1992, Kelly LaRue was 22, unemployed, living with her 4-year-old daughter, and, as she puts it, in a desperate situation. She noticed an Ames Escorts advertisement and dialed the number. By the time she met Jim Bunch in November 1992, the DHS Quality Control Coordinator had become interested in the financial possibilities of the sex racket. Natalie's death left Bunch emotionally reeling. For companionship, he leaned heavily on Kelly, who often spent evenings at his house answering the escort services line. As fate would have it, Bunch's capitalist urgings coincided with the Vice Squad's renewed interest in Sherry Beard. Word on the street was that a bust was imminent. Bunch knew enough about the risks to avoid the most obvious police stings. Sex could not be discussed over the phone, and callers were required to give their names and addresses. Under its new ownership, Ames' business was booming. By Kelly LaRue's estimate, the phone at Bunch's residence rang anywhere from 50 to 100 times daily. Throughout his management of Ames Escorts, Jim Bunch continued to perform his work at the Department of Human Services with his customary efficiency and attention to detail. Bunch did not know that the fax was intercepted by DHS investigators, who had been monitoring him for several weeks. He did not know that one of his company workers had reported him. And with that, James Almer Bunch put the note in his car, drove 5 miles from his house to the parking lot of his old workplace, stepped out onto a grassy median, and revealed the one final secret he had kept from everyone, including his girls: the fact that he owned a revolver. Follow us for more.